Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and surgery. Now, there's really so much, a plethora of things to talk about as far as astrology and surgery go, and I obviously won't be able to state everything in this video, but I'll try to give you guys some general conception as far as indicators in your chart for what surgery you might have and transits that might impact surgery and in favorable auspicious times for it. So anyway, first thing, as far as like electional astrology goes and positions of planets and what signs are in it at the time of surgery, what would be most auspicious for someone? Well, firstly, of course, one fundamental, really, as far as the fundamentals of this goes, many of you may know this, some of you may not, though. Avoid having surgery done when the moon is void, of course. That's one thing to remember. And another thing, too, it's more auspicious and favorable to have the moon in a fixed sign if you can do that at the time, because it's about stability, and fixed signs are about persistence and don't let extraneous things affect them. So I think that has something to do with that. Also, what's favorable, or I should say what's not favorable, well, Mercury and Mars retrograde. I would avoid doing that at the surgery if you could avoid doing it at that time, unless it's imminent, it's something critical, and it has to be done. Like if it's a real medical emergency and you can't procrastinate, then of course you may have no choice but to do it then. Also, as far as scheduling surgery, well, Mercury retrograde may not be the best time to do that. As far as scheduling may go, you might get back really held up a little bit, but at the same time, keep in mind, if you decline on scheduling a surgery when Mercury is retrograde, then let's say you have to wait X amount of days. If you decide to wait X amount of days to schedule it, then that might even cause another delay. So I don't think that's really up to the individual, because no matter how you look at it, you might experience some kind of delay. So anyway, another thing too is that to keep in mind, you may not see this in many places, but I think also if Mercury is in a water sign, that may not be the best or propitious time to do it, because emotions can cloud the logical thinking perhaps during this time as far as electional astrology may go. And keep in mind that there may not be a real flawless or infallible time to actually have surgery, because the people that are performing the surgery, there's a good chance, especially if you have more than one person doing so, they're going to experience something adverse from a transit or what have you to their own natal chart. So the only thing you can really look at, of course, is things connected with your own chart, and looking at things electionally, looking at the progressed chart, your transits, and as far as electional astrology may go. Now, another thing too is when you look at this in terms of surgery, also as far as let's say a really negative time, or a time where I would avoid the surgery. Say if you have transiting Mars making an adverse aspect to your natal Mars, because Mars, of course, is associated with surgery, so I would avoid it during a time, say if you have a transiting Mars making a square opposition or even an inconjunct aspect to your natal Mars. At least wait till it passes if that's the case, if you're able to protract the surgery date. Now, Another thing too is, as far as surgery goes, as far as the natal chart, well, if you have like say you have Jupiter in your 8th house, this could indicate perhaps surgery that could be fortuitous, but it could, remember, keep in mind that Jupiter is paradoxical. It could bring some fortune to that area of that house it may be in, but it could also expand issues. So that's something important to look at too. Now let's take my 8th house for example. 8th house, of course, corresponds with surgery. On my 8th house, okay, I have Sagittarius on, which could be very benign as far as surgery goes. It doesn't mean necessarily I'm not going to have any surgeries, but it could be fortuitous. It could show that I come out of surgeries relatively unscathed. It could be a good, as far as a good sign for that, a good indicator for that. But also look and see if there's any planets in it. Now, in my case, I have no planets that are in there now, but my chart, the ruler of my 8th, also look at where the ruler of the 8th house resides. My ruler of my 8th house is in my 6th house, and that is Jupiter in Libra. And in 2006 I had a kidney stone pulverized, and of course Libra corresponds with the kidneys. My Jupiter also makes an inconjunct to my ascendant, so that could indicate something where you might have perhaps some health issues when you have that aspect. And inconjuncts can indicate health issues, and also, especially it's coming from the 6th house of health. So anyway, now let's say though, in my case, I don't, as I stated before, I have no planets in my 8th house, but let's say you have a planet in the 8th house. Well, let's say that the sun is in the 8th house. Well, this could indicate perhaps, you look at maybe heart surgery could be possible for somebody that has the sun in the 8th house, or Mercury in the 8th house could indicate someone that might have surgery perhaps on the hands, like carpal tunnel, or some arm or shoulder surgery. Keep in mind too, look at the sign on the 8th house. As I stated before, I talked about Sagittarius can be very benign, but it also does correspond with certain body components. So you look at Sagittarius on the 8th, Sagittarius is over the gallbladder, so it could indicate somebody that, maybe in the future I may have some surgical procedure connected with that. So, or it might be some kind of hip replacement surgery. And also look at the progressed chart as well in transits, because if you have, let's say, in your progressed chart, for example, let's say that Pisces is on the 8th house, well, this could indicate perhaps some issue for maybe you might have surgery on the feet during this period, something with the toes and or the feet during that time. If your progressed chart, say, has Jupiter in the 8th house, well, that could show perhaps a good period as far as maybe surgery goes, maybe getting out of them okay, relatively unscathed, or could actually indicate abundance of surgeries during that time. And so those are some things to look at. And also keep in mind, you don't want to have surgery during the time where the moon falls in a sign that corresponds with that body part that you're going to have the surgery on. So let's say that the moon is in Gemini, and if you're having surgery, say on something with your arms, your fingers, your hands, you're having some carpal tunnel issues and you're getting that taken care of, you really, that would not be the ideal time to have that surgery on that particular, as far as that would go in that example, as far as anything with the hands, the fingers, the arms. So those are some things to look at as far as astrology and surgery goes. And The thing too is, and keep in mind, is I want to talk about another example. Let's say that Mars is in the eighth house, whether it's by progression, by transit in your natal chart. Well, this could indicate someone may have a surgery in connection with something that might be a volatile situation that caused serious injury. In some cases, it could indicate something connected with gunfire and something with a volatile attack, perhaps. And another thing too to look at, keep in mind, it's not just about the eighth house. I stated before, if you have if Mars is, like, for example, making an transiting Mars, making an adverse aspect to your natal Mars, that could be a negative time as far as having surgery goes. Now, Pluto transiting the ascendant, let's say it's making an applying conjunction to your natal ascendant. That might be a time where you may be having surgery. That could definitely increase the propensity for that, because Pluto is about transformation, and it might be something where you're transformed, that the physical body is getting changed, and as a result of surgery. If Mars is making let's say also Pluto even transiting the first house, even if it's not making a conjunction to the ascendant, could increase the possibility as well. Now, Mars transiting the ascendant, say making an applying conjunction, could be a period where one may have surgery. And also, if it's in the first house, if it's traversing the first house, that could be a possibility as well. So those are some things to consider as far as possible times for surgery. And also, another example too could be, let's say that Mars, transiting Mars, is making a conjunction to your natal North Node. Well, the North Node could be about things that we need to confront, or even if the transiting North Node is making a conjunction to your natal Mars, well, this could indicate a time where you may have a need to confront something connected with surgery during this time. So that's another thing to look at as far as a time where one may have increased the propensity or possibility of one having surgery. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for astrology and surgery. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be continuing my series on the Black Moon Lilith in the zodiac signs. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.